Hello there. Hopefully, you all can hear me. This is kind of a test run for what I hope to do in the future with this particular live or part of the channel, anyway. So, my goal, um, again, this is Operation Fatherhood. For those of you who are new, and for those of you who've been subscribers for the longest time, I hope you all continue to be so. Okay, Operation Fatherhood channel. So, what is it about? About a year ago, a little more than a year ago, probably around the time when the pandemic was starting. Um, the goal was to um, create a channel or leave behind videos, really, for my children. And so that being the case, I was leaving behind videos for my children because I just didn't know what was going to happen with the future. I remember, like, Kobe Bryant passed away, and then the pandemic kind of start taking off, and different people um, were getting sick and passing away. Unfortunately, obviously, some of you all may have lost friends and family members. Um, and I just remember, my children are small; they still are. One was 4, be 5 later this month, and my daughter is uh, 3 years old. And I just remember thinking, I don't know what the future is going to hold. Excuse me from wiping my nose all the time. Not because I actually thought anything was going to happen to me, but I just you just don't know. Like, anything can happen tonight. I could wake up, not wake up in the morning. And so anyway, I remember even like a few years back, there was a guy who, and I think he literally got famous for it. He was basically doing like a lecture series or something like that for his kids. Because he literally was going to die. I think he had some form of cancer or something like that, and he left him behind. I think, if I remember correctly, I might be doing it wrong. But anyway, my whole point being is that I wanted to leave behind initial videos for my children to kind of look back on and think about whenever they got older, to see what their father was thinking and stuff like that. And then over time, it became, well, I wonder if I can do videos that might just be a benefit to anybody, be a blessing to other fathers, be a blessing to some students I've had in the past and in the present, maybe in the future, and my children included. So I just started kind of making a thing that I'm going to do this video for, do videos for any and everybody. And, always hoping it'll get more subscribers, always hoping it'll be more of a blessing to people. Hopefully I'll be able to get better equipment one day so it'll look better and sound better and stuff like that. But the thing is that, so I did all that to say that this is kind of my, I remember I was watching, I'm a big fan of other YouTube channels. And the thing I remember, liking about others, that they would do live stuff. They would, kind of engage their audience. And so I kind of thought, you know what, maybe I'll try that, because I'd always liked the idea of doing a radio show. I did a podcast in the past. And I like engaging with people. I still hope and desire to have more people to have on this channel to interview and interact with and stuff like that. So that's still my goal, is still to have others to interact with, to talk with. Hopefully, those of you who are subscribers, those of you who are people who are just, going by and just like, what in the world is this? The lighting is terrible. It's all grainy looking and stuff like that. But maybe, maybe I'll say something that, maybe be a blessing to you and uplift you and things of that nature. So my goal is to make sure a lot of these live videos, unless I'm ever able to get others on who are like guests and things of that nature, if I'm ever able to get other people on who are ever, like I said, just guests of the, what I'm doing and stuff like that. Maybe make it a bit longer, but my goal would be to try to keep it under 10 to 15 minutes. I think because a lot of people are busy in general. You have a plethora of channels out there, and people are just busy in general. So my goal is to just keep things shorter, because that's about as long as people's attention span anyway. And then if you got family and kids and stuff like that, having these too long videos and stuff like that is sometimes it's a bit too much. So again, that's kind of the introduction. So like I said before, it started out being a thing for my kids. So that's why a lot of times you'll see me in regular videos outside of the live shows where I'll say, dear Elena and Elijah, because I dedicate those videos to them. And so hopefully that the older they get, they will, look back at these videos, or they can look back at these videos and be like, okay, maybe I can kind of see what dad was getting at there, or have some type of guidance for their life. Um, and then it's kind of, progressing to hopefully being a blessing to just, people in general and everywhere around the world. Okay, then I wanted to start, like I said before, doing more live because I like the idea. I watch other channels and they, do live and they engage their audience, so I think that's just great to me. Um, and then the other thing with this also I wanted to start doing is trying to, do stuff where it's kind of more like, trying to share more wisdom, but sometimes be maybe a little bit more thoughtful. Um, but also, pull wisdom from different areas. I'm a religious guy, so many times I'll look at the Bible. Um, and what I might even start doing is just try to take like a, in the intro of the show, take like a, a quote or a scripture or something like that, and use that as like wisdom to share, and then, go from there. Okay, so now the latter part of this, or the ending, if you will, the middle and the ending, I guess. The reason I titled this one, the introduction, "The Master of Your Growth," um, is because a lot of times I'll get ideas for videos and stuff like that just because of stuff I've seen posted somewhere or watched. And I may not always use the person's name, just because I don't want to, like, piggyback on what they're doing, or um, use their name without, permission and stuff like that sometimes. But anyway, so I was watching the video. This is going on about 7 minutes, so I'm trying to keep it under 10 minutes. I was watching no, I was looking at a post on whatever social media app I was looking at the time, and there's a well known athlete who had posted something about like his, he's going to schools, getting more education, things of that nature, and he had made this point where he said something like, you know, all this information that I'm learning now, and I just feel like they lied to me, to us growing up, or, public schools don't do enough to tell us our history and stuff like that. It's kind of, like a, thing about they, they make things so much more Eurocentric. They don't, talk enough about us and things of that nature. And the things I've kind of made the point of saying, before to people is that as I am, an educator, this is my third year, I would tell people that you're the master of your own growth. And what I mean by that is that, like, as a teacher, there's really only so far that I can go with in education in a public school setting. I can only go so far with trying to educate you on the things of life, or I'm an English teacher, or the things in English, the standards, how deep can we really go with the standard, right? How much can we really get into some heavy content? Because, young people, they have a lot of other issues they bring in the classroom. So it's not just um, we just go in the classroom, we're just automatically learning, right? And then on top of that, during this pandemic, we have kids that are going, they're like where I am, we're virtual. So, those kids they've been pretty much home. So now you're battling not just the, the classroom, normal classroom setting, you're actually battling the fact that they're at home most of the time, which means that even though you can see them virtually, like with our little devices and cameras and stuff like that, like you can see me, many times they're on their phone or they're looking up. I've had kids fall asleep during class. So anyway, my whole point being is that you are the master of your own growth. And this is where I would encourage a lot of parents is that, know what your kids are learning going through school. You don't have to be the brightest person. You don't have to have that kind of education to know the importance of their education for them to learn something. That's why one of my goals, or it has been my goal, to try to infuse some reality into the classroom and try to help the students know why this is important. I'm not just teaching you this so you can just do well on a test. So, like I say, I did my job, but I really do care about. I try to care about my students. I really want them to be successful in their future, right? And so, like I said before, I try to encourage a lot of parents and try to tell my students, and it's actually, I said this is going to try to keep this under 10 minutes. This might go a little past 10 minutes, actually, for my first quote unquote episode. Um, but I've had, numerous young people. If I have something like 100 students this year, in the very introduction of me getting to know them that first week of school, we started like the end of July. I think I asked them like, hey, how many of you all like reading? And I imagine if you're sitting there watching me, or if you watch this video, you can probably guesstimate how many of them actually, say they actually enjoy reading, or reading outside of what they do in school, if that much, right? Um, so I think out of all the 100 something I teach, some, I'm not gonna say what I teach, but get too involved just because I did work for the state. Um, but it probably isn't any more. It probably isn't more than 10%. It's probably not even more than 5% of students I have that really say that they enjoy reading. And so the thing is for me is to try to help them realize the importance of reading, the importance of growing in knowledge, the other reasons of that they will deal with. That's the older they get, young adults, families, no families, career, all that kind of stuff. How knowing the English language, how knowing reading, how actually enjoying reading can be a benefit to them when they get older. They don't just become a teacher in order to enjoy it. Um, and so that's why I would say, I remember this person making this post about, um, you know, people now, or I feel like, from what I was getting, what he was saying is that people, I guess I think he's about my age. So I'm 36, born 1985. So he's probably around that ballpark. So I guess he felt like, and he grew up in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s or whatever. They didn't do enough to like really share with us the truth of our, quote unquote heritage as African American people or whatever. And I understand that. I don't try to disrespect anybody else's feelings, but my thing is sometimes there's other aspects to that reality. Um, so what I would say is, to that person, and what I would say, in general is, you know, sometimes people do not purposely do something um, that you feel like is on purpose. So a lot of schools, even I would say, even when I came up in the 90s, I don't think they purposely dismissed, African Americans. Now, hold on now. I know folks want to jump, probably get upset about that because, well, these African, these our country's had a history of, racial issues. Obviously, we're still going through some. But what I mean is that sometimes, even during that time period, and up to now, I have taught social studies before. I didn't go nowhere near in depth about, the issues concerning a plethora of people groups, right? And there's only but so deep you can go. And so my thing is that since that is the case, there's only a certain number of days they're in school, only a certain amount of time that you have them. There's only a certain amount of the actual time where they're able to completely focus without any distractions from their other classmates, because those are other things that you have to battle. I don't. Sometimes people who aren't teachers, may not know that or realize that many times teachers don't have a perfect situation. So that being said, as people who are parents out there, that's where I try to encourage a lot of parents. Try to know what your kids have going on. Don't be afraid to make them read, more and study more than they're typically knowing. So, sometimes people are trying to blame like, public school system or quote unquote white people, that kind of stuff, on their lack of knowledge or the lack of knowledge or the lack of opportunities to have an education early on. And sometimes I'm like, okay, but there's been resources for African American people, Hispanic people, Asian people, poor Caucasian people for decades. I mean, a ton of resources. I mean, so if you're a parent out there, don't just send your child to school thinking that that child is gonna like get everything they need to know about life and about their history and all that kind of stuff just from you sending them, right? Make them do more. So, for example, my second mother, when I was a kid, I never forget, she found my little at the end of the school year. I'm trying to make this under 15 minutes. It's going on 14 minutes. So she found a journal that I had from my school that I was trying to make sure she didn't see because I knew what was going to happen when she and my father found it. Excuse me. And the goal was to find, or not the goal was, she found it and was like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, something I'm meant to get rid of." She's like, "Oh yeah, no, you're not." And then it was every book we read during the school year, we had to, like, it's like 20, 30 some questions, I think, in the like a page in front of the journal. Every book we had to read, we had to like do those questions and basically do a summary. And I can't remember if we presented it or not in school or not, but guess what my PhD neuroscience second mother decided to do? She took me and was like, yeah, so I can't remember how many books I must have had to read that summer. It's like 10 or 11 years old. And sure enough, I had to read every book, go through them questions, do a little summary, and I had to present it to her. And that was a time period where I think my parents said I had a tremendous amount of growth just from reading, that summer or those summers. And that's kind of the thing I think a lot of people, that's why I really I don't know if we should do commercials in our country or what, but I really wish we would push that more often. Like to, it's not just a suburban thing. That's, I mean, I teach, taught kids who are suburban, consider suburban, taught, country kids, taught rural, poor kids, taught whatever, different races, different cultures, whatever. Uh, but the thing is, like across the board nowadays, especially with technology being the way it is and stuff like that, is you just have a lot of young people who they just don't care about reading. So we got to encourage them to desire to read, and that's what I try to get them to see is that, and this is why I went back to you're the master. I named this, live intro. You're the master of your growth. You are the master of your growth. Like if it comes to education, there are some folks that you cross paths with that are obviously we know those folks who may lack of education, so they might be ignorant or foolish or whichever. There's some folks who are very intelligent without a PhD degree, MD or a law degree or JD or whatever D at the end of their name or whatever, master's degree, so on and so, bachelor's degree for that matter. Some folks barely even had a high school degree and very, very intelligent because they just read a lot, they think a lot, they try to process information as much as possible. They realize they were the master of their own growth. They were the master of their own education, right? And the interesting thing is, and now it's getting past 16 minutes, I'm sorry. And now this is I would actually use this in life in general. So when you have to go through tough times in life, we all have to learn to adapt. So you're the master of your own growth, right? Like me, and I won't go in depth right now. I have to kind of wait for a little while, for some things to kind of go through first before I go really, really in depth with what I want to talk about. But I'm having to learn to adapt, to certain things. I'm having to learn to grow in certain areas that I wasn't expecting to adapt in or grow in because life happens, right? I had some failures in my life, so now because I didn't do the best job, being following my own father's wisdom. So I hope my kids won't be as bad as me, their dad, but they'll be smart like their grandfather and grandmothers. But due to some of my own failures, right, now I'm having to realize, okay, well, how do I adapt to that? How do I grow from that, right? I made that mistake, so how do I plot my next, my journey in order so I won't make that mistake again and stay on the path to success, right? So again, I'm having to look to myself, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's why I want to encourage people encourage people on. And that's why I do this YouTube channel. I want to pass on lessons to my kids. Hopefully, other fathers, can be blessed from it. Hopefully, the next generation can be blessed from it because my kids are part of the next generation as well. But I hope, and even older people. My thing is that you ought to. I wish I don't have the greatest memory in the world, but I wish I hold on to some of those great quotes, and some of those quotes that tell you that if you have the ability to change things, look at yourself first and see if you can change them. Don't just automatically look to someone else or, pray to God and think, okay, well, I'm just going to leave it in God's hands and then don't do anything. Right. That's the sad thing about, I think, a lot of people in general is that they're waiting for something. They're waiting for something to happen. They're waiting for God to be, which I believe God is miraculous. I know there are a lot of folks out there who don't believe, and that's fine. That's your own business. And that's their own business. But I think a lot of people are just like, oh, okay, well, I don't think God is going to do. Well, no. I believe in this higher power, so then therefore I'm going to wait for the higher power to move, and not realize that sometimes the higher power has the ability to move through people that are around you. But you got to be willing to make that move too. And so that's kind of been the big thing for me, is that I need to realize, hey, Jerome, you're the master of your own growth. You can learn things from other folks, but if you can hear other folks, read other things, whatever. But if I hear something that I like and I kind of see, well, maybe it can benefit me in certain ways, but I don't put it into practice, it's really just head knowledge. It's kind of just a waste. And a lot of folks may have a lot of knowledge, but there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Knowledge is applied to life, and you end up understanding its usefulness. So are you going to have just head knowledge, or are you going to actually let it turn into wisdom? You are the master of your own growth. Operation Fatherhood channel here. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. let's try to build this. Thank you.